Hi guys, this is topic 7.5, Beyond Usability, and what we're looking at is designing for pleasure and emotion. So I want you to start off by looking at a couple of videos. So pause me and go into the slideshow and have a quick look at these two videos. So this one is just about designing for emotion, and it's pretty interesting, so have a quick look at that. And then this one I find absolutely fascinating. These guys collect washing machines, and the amount of pleasure they get from collecting these washing machines is really well demonstrated in this video, so have a look at it. It's pretty interesting. Okay, let's move on. What we're going to talk about first is something called the four pleasure framework, and those four pleasures are socio-pleasure, physio-pleasure, psycho-pleasure, and ideal-pleasure, and we'll go through those individually right now. So we're going to start with socio-pleasure. So socio-pleasure is pleasure that you feel belonging to a social group. So this is when you are interacting with others and identifying with social groups. So for instance, these guys right here, these are sports fans. This is the Green Bay Packers. They wear cheese on their heads, so it's a football fan. But if you've ever played a video game with a friend and had a great time doing it, then you are also engaging in social pleasure, right? You're socializing and gaining pleasure from that. And compare that to the old days when video gaming was very much something you did alone, right? Like you may have people watching you, but you wouldn't be playing together. And in the old days, you wouldn't get as much socio pleasure as you do on today's video games. So it's in fact, a lot of people have pretty extensive online friends, friend groups that are based on video gaming. So it's pretty interesting. Okay, let's move on. All right, we have something called physio-pleasure, and so this is a sensual pleasure that comes from touching, smelling, hearing, or tasting something. It can also be derived from the feeling of satisfaction that comes from the effectiveness of an object that enables you to perform an action. Okay, and so it's a sensual pleasure, and try to remember this from touching, smelling, hearing, tasting something. Okay, so for instance, if you taste something that's absolutely delicious, that's going to be a, a physio pleasure. Or you hear a nice sound. There are pleasant sounds. There are also unpleasant sounds, right? Like for instance, on my cell phone, I have the radar alarm, so that when I set an alarm, it goes like it's very loud and like wow, it shocks you out, and that would be sort of the opposite of physio pleasure. But there are sounds that are very pleasing. Like to me, bamboo wind chimes that are blowing in the wind is a very nice sound to me. Okay, so that is physio pleasure. It's sensual pleasure. Okay, we have psychopleasure. So psychopleasure is a type of pleasure that comes from cognition, discovery, knowledge, and other things that satisfy the intellect. So this is when you actually complete some sort of task where you've done a good job on something, and you're just, you're happy with the results, that you learned how to do something new, you solved a puzzle, you solved a hard math problem, something like that can give you pleasure. This is an example, and of course, this is one of our students, and he built this base for a trophy that he was putting together for a CAS project. So and he had a lot of pleasure from doing that. Right, that was accomplishing something, and that satisfies the intellect. Okay, we have ideal pleasure. So this is pleasures that are linked to our ideals, aesthetically, culturally, or otherwise. So I've got some examples here. This is something that would go along with cultural, where some people would find this to be very very nice, and it's very culturally pleasing. Same with this. It's part of the culture, but it could also be like your ideals. So for instance, these are some bicycles that are made out of bamboo, and they're made in Zambia, and they're called Zam bikes. And that would be something where you are, if you're the type of person who's very into making sure you have natural products and that you're environmentally conscious, then buying a bike like this would satisfy your ideal pleasure because it's satisfying an ideal, right? An ideal would be like your sort of like your moral code, your what is right and wrong. So that would be an example of this Zam bike right here. Okay, we're going to talk about some levels of appeal. Okay, so there are three levels of appeal, and one of the first levels is, we'll go through these individually, but there's visceral. You want it, and it looks beautiful, and because it looks beautiful, maybe so will you. There's totally like advertisements take advantage of this all the time. You know, they show like an attractive person using a product, and the connotation is that by using that product, you will also be attractive. Okay, there's behavioral appeal, and that's going to be have something to do with I can master it, so it makes me feel like I can accomplish a goal. And then reflective, you know, you can tell stories about it. It helps to complete you as a person. I'm not exactly sure what, you know, a great example for that. Okay, let's move on. So visceral design, so this is a definition that you need to know, that it is design that speaks to people's natures in terms of how they expect products and systems to function and how they expect to interact with them. So this is all about expectations. How do you expect a product to work, and does it actually function in that way? And also, does it look nice, right? You know, what do you expect the products and systems to, how do they function and interact with them and look? It's all of that. Okay, behavioral is focused on use and understanding. This considers how people will use the product, focusing on functionality. So again, if a product is too difficult to use and you can't use it, then you're probably not going to be satisfying this emotional aspect right here, because you know what's going to end up happening is you will not understand it. It'll make you feel bad. You know, maybe a Rubik's Cube can be like this, right? Like, you know, for some people, it you know, when they can solve a Rubik's Cube, they're thrilled to death. But others that can't make them function, you know, that would be something that is going to bother them. So that's behavioral design, right? Okay, and then we got reflective design. So that's design that evokes personal memory, focusing on the message, culture, or the meaning of the product or use. So it could be something that focuses on a personal memory, or you know, you remember using something, you know, as a kid, or you know, this is why adults often will buy toys that they played with for their kids, because it evokes a personal memory for them. Okay, we're also going to talk about this. This is the attract, converse, attract, converse, and transact model. Okay, so that's the ACT model. And it's a framework for creating designs that improves the relations of users with a product and intentionally triggers emotional responses. Okay, and so we're going to go through these right now. Okay, so you can see attract has something to do with aesthetics. It's aesthetics oriented. This is interaction oriented. How do you interact with something? And this is functional orientation. And what we want to do, the ideal product relationship is desirable, usable, and useful, right? So that's what we want out of a product. And so these kind of interact with each other. And when you get all three right, then that's when you know you have a good product. So what attracts you? What qualities does a product have that first attracts us to it? You know, and has to do with aesthetics. You know, so like to me, this car is a beautiful thing. The colors of it, the shape of it, I like the lines. It looks, you know, I like the way that the front grille and the headlights look. It just looks like a beautiful thing to me. It attracts me right away. And actually, I find this thing quite attractive too. I like the aesthetics of it is to me quite beautiful. And so, or well, maybe not beautiful, but interesting. It's just well done, and it looks like something that, you know what, I wouldn't mind owning that. So that has something to do with aesthetics. Are you attracted to it? Okay, then you have to think about, can the product actually be used? So yeah, you may be attracted to this product, but does it actually function? Can I actually use it? Right? Can I interact with it? Does it conform with what we think is usable? Here's another example. You know, these are for making a little mini espresso on the go. Is this something that you can actually use, or is this just something that, like, well, whatever, it's kind of gimmicky, and who actually needs that? And then lastly, is it functional? So this is the product useful? And here's a couple of examples to me of like, wow, those are super good ideas and just very functional. Here's a shelf that acts as a drawer also, and here's these are extension cords, power strips, right? So that you can, and they're flat, so you can lay them under carpets and things like that. So is it functional? Okay, but also when I look at these things, I think that they actually work on all three of those principles, in the sense that this is also very it's attractive, like it's a nice looking design, and I think that it also you'd be able to interact with it easily. And same with this, it's very functional, it's attractive, and it's also something that you could easily interact with. It's not going to break down, and you would expect to be able to use it the way it's intended. All right, well, that's it, guys.